It seems like every day this crisis is continuing, we are losing more and more of our rights, and many people are just bending over backwards to say, go ahead, government, do whatever you want. I see tons of progressives that have adopted a tribalist stance that you should not be defending your rights. No surprise, right? We've seen it with censorship on social media. All of a sudden, these people who are supposed to oppose corporations are now saying, but Facebook's a private company. Now, when people are saying we have a right to protest, they're saying, are you crazy? It's a pandemic. Yeah, it is a pandemic, right? Let me tell you something. Over in Raleigh, police declared protesting a non-essential activity, and a woman got arrested. I wonder, were the civil rights movement protests non-essential? I'd say they were very essential. So yes, protesting is an essential function of our country and it's a civic duty to stand up for what we believe in. And yes, that includes protesting. It's quite literally in the First Amendment. It's the first for a reason. Within that, we have a right to the press and we have a right to worship, among other things. While this woman was being arrested, journalists were standing all around her. I'm sorry, what makes you think the right to assemble is not essential and the journalists are? You can't, how do you say, they're both in the First Amendment. This is what we cannot allow. I'm going to read you the story. But the first thing I want to do is show you something really shocking. This is a video posted by Minno. It says, in a scene that is becoming the new normal in America, tens of thousands of struggling families lined up in cars and waited to get a distribution of food this week. This is a video of the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank helping to feed the community. I want to stress, I'm not entirely sure who this individual is. It's just a video going viral on Twitter. Perhaps it's not real. I don't know. Seems like it's legit. We've seen similar videos. In it, you can see one of the most insane. I mean, look, it says BFM TV, Los Angeles, California. And these people are lining up it's a massive line of cars to get food. And there's several reasons this is happening. This line is ridiculous. It's stretching down several blocks. This is nuts. And the reason this is happening is that people have lost access to the economy. It's not necessarily because there's no food. For some people, it probably is. But many people, as long as everything's shut down and everything's locked down, have no way to get food. What do you think comes next? This is what I've been warning. First, we see the government start arresting people who are outside. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you how this is connected and why I think it's happening. I don't think people are being arrested like this because they're concerned about social distancing. We've shut everything down. I think they're concerned that if too many people are bored and milling about, they'll start looting or rioting. Already in New York, we've seen it. Commercial burglaries are up 75%. Call it what you want. But if you lock the city down in an emergency and people start breaking into commercial buildings to take stuff, I call that looting. Let's read the story from The Blaze. They say, amid a rally that drew more than 100 protesters to downtown Raleigh, North Carolina on Tuesday, demanding the reopening of the state's economy, a tweet about the demonstration from the city's police department was clear. Protesting is a non-essential activity. The tweet came after cops earlier declared protesters are in violation of Democratic Governor Roy Cooper's stay-at-home executive order to stop the spread of the coronavirus and have been asked to leave. I am going to thoroughly disparage these police officers as complete scumbags. Complete scumbags. No one should have the executive authority to just decree the Constitution is void. There are ways you can deal with protest. There are ways you can ask people to be safe. And ultimately, you do not have the right to stop Americans from standing up to their government, no matter what a doctor says. Now, let's be real. I think at this point, it's still a little early. We should definitely be social distancing. And I would not personally be out protesting for anything, not even for this. But there's a red line. And it has to do with how much time we spend and how much we deal with this. Because at a certain point, you can't just have everything collapse because you're scared of the virus. There are other factors involved. The economy is a health issue. I just showed you people who can't get food. So you got to pick now. Which one is worse? I can't tell you. But if the cops are going to go arrest people because these people are saying it's time to get back to work, these cops are in violation of the First Amendment. No one has the executive authority to just decree this. This is insane. Someone asked what part of the governor's order was violated, and they said protesting is a non-essential activity. Protesters said Cooper's order is an unconstitutional overreach that threatens to destroy small businesses, and the coronavirus isn't as deadly as officials are claiming, testing is inaccurate, and causes of death are suspicious. I don't care about any of that. I don't care if they think it's bad. I don't care if they think it's really bad or if they think it's really, not that much, not that bad at all. What matters is that if you want to deal with protests, it's not done this way. This is ineffective. You can't just snap your fingers and instruct people that the First Amendment no longer applies to them. But every day the Constitution gets just torn up by people in government. And it's no surprise to me that it's the conservatives out protesting saying we want to get back to work, and they're being smeared as crazy. Now, I'll tell you what, like I said, you won't see me out doing that. I don't want to get sick. This stuff sounds pretty nasty. I've seen stories about people getting sick. Not fun. Not something you want to get. I think you understand the severity of the coronavirus. Some people just don't believe it. I've got a story from the New York Times you can go over. They're increasing the number of dead in New York, and people are claiming the numbers are wrong. I think, if anything, the numbers are low. But here's the ethical conundrum. I've talked about how I actually lean a little bit left on gun control issues, but there's nothing I can do about the Constitution, so I kind of just shrug and say, well, you know what? You get the good with the bad. You don't always like everything. I'm not anti-gun at all. I just think there's certain, things that probably could be implemented. Well, I don't know a whole lot. I wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I've always been a little moderate, little to the left on these issues. But I'll tell you what, the Second Amendment exists, and I'm like, well, if you want to change it, you got to change it before you do anything else. Change the Constitution before you do this. The same is true for this. Oh, you got an emergency? All right, get all the states together, have a constitutional convention, change the First Amendment. How about that? Add in case of emergencies. See how that goes over. It would never fly. This shouldn't fly either. You can tell people not to do these things, but these lockdowns are unconstitutional. It creates a vulnerability for sure. Because you look at these authoritarian countries that can just lock people in their homes and they can control the flow of this. For us, we have freedom to consider. The paper said at least one protester was arrested for failing to disperse as her wrists were zip tied. She said, "I have a right to peacefully assemble," she told police. As officers led her away, the woman shouted, "God bless America." Raleigh police said the state capitol police made the arrest. Here's the clip. They say, what happened? What else happened? Every 15 minutes, about 50 cars honked their horns in unison. The paper said, adding that as an officer asked several protesters to keep 6 feet apart, the noise drowned out his voice. "We are in violation of Comrade Cooper's order," Leonard Harrison said, according to the paper. "If I get locked up today, I'm okay with that. As North Carolinians, we need to get back to work. You should be ashamed of yourself," one protester told police. The paper said, while another protester asked them, "Are you goons of Cooper or servants of the people?" Let me tell you, these police are going out and they're breaking the law, period. No one can just sign a paper and say, do this or else. These police are breaking the law. The law is I get it. There's statutory law and there's the Constitution. But as far as I can tell, you can't just sign a paper and say, here's your law. Now, I get it. There's emergency declarations and they probably got approval, to a certain degree to do these things. I don't care. We cannot tolerate this. And these cops should be ashamed of themselves. These are supposed to be they're not supposed to be the big mindless drone cops you expect out of major cities who are just, churning out quotas. But here we go. This is what we get. I want to remind you of something. I can't tell you what is or isn't the right thing to do in terms of the economy or health. I can tell you that if people don't eat, people die. I can tell you that people being locked in their homes are starting to lose their minds. And we have to balance the amount of people who will lose their lives from lack of food versus the amount of people who can die from the illness. The illness seems to be more immediate, so I lean towards being okay with quarantine and locking down, and I think the advice is sound and we should listen to it. I also recognize that many other people are suffering and I can't see it, and the media certainly is not talking about it enough. They're more concerned about health, health, health. It's why they say Dr. Fauci 50 million times. And when anyone else considers the fact that we need an economy to get food into cities, they say you're disregarding the health experts. It's not one problem. Everything is tied together. All of these people in cars stretching down several blocks are waiting to get food because they can't get it anywhere else. So you've got an issue with the health. And what do you think happens when people can't get food? I'll tell you, people are going to take the food. They're going to get out of their cars. They're going to walk up and just take it and say, I can't wait here for 3 hours. So we can open up the economy, risking infections and more people losing their lives, or we can keep it shut down and risk looting, mass vandalism, and yes, people losing their lives. It's been a couple weeks now, almost, what has it been, like a month now? Since the lockdown started coming into effect. I don't know how long these people think we can actually pull this off. We just did a major multi-trillion-dollar stimulus because people don't have money. And they're all talking about getting their Trump bucks and going and spending it. Yeah, that's not going to last. People have to pay rent. Some people aren't. People have to buy food. Some people can't. Now, the New York Times has just reported this. And a lot of people are acting like the crisis isn't legit. I'm going to show you this. They say the NYC death toll soars past 10,000 in revised virus count. The city has added more than 3,700 additional people who were presumed to have died of the coronavirus, but had never tested positive. Many people I see messaging me about this saying that they're inflating the numbers. I completely disagree. I think this is possibly the right move. The challenge is we don't know how to track everything perfectly. And we have been ignoring the fact that there's more than around 10 times as many people dying at home than the average. It stands to reason, okay? The simple solution. If we're in a pandemic and people are locked in their houses and these people are dying substantially more than normal, it stands to reason at least some of this is from the coronavirus. Does that mean we should label every single one? Probably not. You know why? What they're saying is that people are dying at home more than average, right? Well, you've also got everyone locked in their homes more than average. So don't be surprised if the normal amount of people who would die on the street or out at work or whatever are now in their homes and dying. But you need to consider this. The people who would die outside in New York City, I believe it was around 150 per day. We're now seeing about 250 per day dying in their homes. The people who are dying outside there would be violent crime, which is relatively low, but there could be accidents, car accidents, things like that. Or someone could have a heart attack or a stroke outside. They wouldn't consider that an at-home death. Now that these people are quarantined, those at-home deaths we can expect to go up. If we took every single death in New York minus at home, we have about 125 per day. This is based on the 2017 average. I looked up the numbers. Combine that with the at-home deaths, you get about 150 per day. If we were to add that 125, we would only have 150 people per day in their homes dying. So we end up seeing 225 to 250, which stands to reason a decent amount of these people are probably dying from the coronavirus. All of them, probably not, but many of them, yes. Now, is the city going to be adding literally everyone who died in their home to coronavirus? Probably not everyone, but probably more than they should. Regardless, I think the number is undercounted. So I can put it this way. I don't know what the criteria is to add these, but I don't think they're arbitrarily adding these deaths. Though they're not testing for coronavirus, and we end up with a very serious predicament of, are we going to freak people out and keep the economy shut down when it could be that some of these people died for reasons having to do with not being able to get access to medicines or food? The New York Times says, New York City, already a world epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, sharply increased its death toll by more than 3,700 on Tuesday after officials said they were now including people who had never tested positive for the virus, but were presumed to have died of it. The new figures released by the city's health department drove up the number of people killed in New York City to more than 10,000 and appeared to increase the overall U.S. death count by 17% to more than 26,000. The numbers brought into clear focus the staggering toll of the virus has taken. Let me stop you right there. I think it's fair to say the city's doing their best to track the total numbers. But I don't think it's fair to then come out and say this proves the virus has ravaged. Well, I think we can be fair and say that the virus is causing this damage for the most part. But I think we need to point out that while the virus has caused the initial health concern, the economic shutdown in attempt to slow the virus is causing a massive amount of damage, and it could be potentially worse than the virus itself. Now, let me clarify that statement. What I'm saying is the total damage will go beyond just loss of life. Loss of life is the number one priority. I don't think there's amount of money you could put on someone's life. Look, I know there's a lot of ethical and moral conundrums around the value of life. The point I'm trying to make is we would be willing to take massive economic damage to save lives, within reason. But if the economy starts taking enough damage, it will extend beyond human lives and we'll start seeing a collapse of infrastructure, which will make it very difficult to get emergency supplies, to pay nurses and doctors, and then you end up losing more lives. They say we want to flatten the curve, right? The goal of flattening the curve is to make sure the healthcare system can maintain, that we can keep enough beds available for people and save lives. But it's not just about flattening the curve so the healthcare system can handle it. If you shut down the economy, then the entirety of the infrastructure also has a capacity. And if it reaches capacity, meaning we can't get food and medicine to hospitals, the hospitals collapse as well. It's a balancing act. It's hard to know exactly where that line is. But if protesters are upset because These governors are ignoring the real ramifications of the economy, or they disagree and think that the economy needs to reopen. Shutting down someone's civil liberties is not the answer. I assure you it will make more protesters. Like I said, I've never wanted to protest more or needed to. I would absolutely love to drive down there right now and be like, no way, dude, you can't do this. All you're going to do is anger more people. They say 3,000 more people died in New York between March 11th and April 13th than would have been expected during the same time period in an ordinary year. Dr. Osiris Barba, the commissioner of the city health department, said in an interview. While these so-called excess deaths were not explicitly linked to the virus, they might not have happened had the outbreak not occurred, in part because it overwhelmed the normal healthcare system. Now, my question is, are they going to add these people to the coronavirus death count? That I don't believe would be fair if we're trying to figure out how many people died of the infection. If you want to talk about the total crisis death toll, then you got to include the suicides and you got to include the people who are starving or going hungry. This is yet another part of the impact of COVID, she said, adding that more study was needed. Similar analysis is commonly done after heat waves. What New Yorkers are interested in and what the country is interested in is that we have an accurate and complete count, she added. It's part of the healing process that we are going to have to go through. I believe the doctor was female. Did I get it wrong? Osiris? Okay, the doctor added. I don't know if that's a male or female. The revised death toll renewed focus on shortcomings in testing. All right, let me stop you right there. I got some criticism for you. If they're seriously saying there's more people who have died, they could have died for other reasons, we're going to add that to the count. That's not fair. Keep that in consideration when people mention the death count, that they are seemingly, it looks like they're adding people who are not explicitly linked to the virus. Excess deaths. Well, I don't know if they're going to actually add those excess deaths. They're not very clear. They want to say, let me skip all this. People who have died of coronavirus in New York City, probable deaths. So they're adding probable deaths. They were not included in the counts given. Okay. Here's the clarification. For weeks, the health department also had been recording additional deaths tied to the virus, according to two people briefed in the matter. Those cases involved people who were presumed to have been infected because of their symptoms and medical history. They were not included in the counts given publicly by Bill de Blasio because no tests had confirmed the victims had the disease. Mr. de Blasio decided after another round of briefings over the weekend to release the presumptive cases, the people said. Most of the added deaths took place in hospitals, according to the data. Others occurred in nursing homes or other long-term care facilities and in residences. In the heat of battle, our primary focus has been on saving lives. So again, they're not really making it clear whether or not these excess deaths are being added to this. And if that's the case, I kind of frown upon that because this doctor straight up says that these people are dying not necessarily because of coronavirus, but because the hospital was overwhelmed. I think it's fair to add that to a crisis death total, but not to blame the virus on it. All that really matters is we make the distinction. You let people know that it looks like what New York's saying is that these are deaths related to the crisis, not necessarily just those infected. So they say the new numbers in New York cover the weeks between March 11th, April 13th. All right. I think we get it. We get that it's serious. I'm going to kind of wrap this up, but I think they need to be clear on what they're trying to claim about these deaths because a lot of people have criticism over this, and this is only going to make things worse. It's going to result in more protests, and it's going to result in more, dramatic escalation. I'm surprised to see certain personalities, certain YouTubers and other progressives taking a hard pro-government stance. It's really strange to me. While I agree with the guidelines we see from the doctors to protect our health, I disagree with the authoritarian overreach. Why would you come out and mock these protesters or insult them for exercising their First Amendment rights? That's insane. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. At 4 p.m. YouTube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel, and I will see you all then.